You know, ever wish your body came with an owner's manual, especially for something as complex and, well, central to life as the female reproductive cycle? Well, today we're going to build one. We're going to distill all that essential info into a clear, concise guide. So let's just dive right in.
So here's our game plan. First step, we'll start at the very top with the body's mission control. That's the hormonal command center that's running the whole show. From there, we'll get into decoding the monthly cycle itself. Then we're going to zoom out and look at the arc of an entire lifetime, from the very first cycle to the last. And finally, we'll wrap up with the blueprint for life itself, the incredible journey of conception. All right, let's kick things off with section 1, the body's mission control. Before we can even begin to understand the cycle, we got to meet the ones calling all the shots. Okay, I know what you're thinking. At first glance, this looks complicated. But trust me, the core idea is actually just a simple conversation. This right here is the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, or HPG axis for short. You're going to want to remember that one. It's basically the top-down communication system running everything, a constant feedback loop between the brain and the ovaries. And here's the real aha moment. This whole delicate conversation can be thrown off by things like stress, diet, or sleep. It just goes to show you how interconnected everything in our bodies really is.
So let's break that down. Think of it like a military chain of command. It's actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, the hypothalamus. That's the general. It sends out the initial signal. Step 2, the pituitary gland, our field commander, gets that signal and sends out its troops. Two really important hormones, follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. And finally, step 3, those troops reach the ovaries. The ovaries get their orders from FSH and LH, and they respond by producing the big players of the cycle, estrogen and progesterone, brain to ovaries. Simple as that. Okay, so we've met the bosses up in mission control. Now let's look at what all their work actually produces. That brings us to part 2, decoding the monthly cycle. This is that repeating rhythm that happens because of all those signals we just talked about.
We always hear about the perfect 28-day cycle, right? But that's not the whole story. The normal range is actually way broader. 28 days, give or take a full week. The whole thing is broken down into 3 main acts: the follicular, the ovulatory, and the luteal phases. And get this is super important. If your cycle is longer or shorter one month, it's almost always because that first part, the follicular phase, changed in length. That second half is usually remarkably consistent. Now, to really get what's happening here, you have to think of it like watching 2 storylines in a movie that are happening at the same time and are totally connected. So on the left, you've got what's happening in the ovaries. See those follicles? They're little sacs with eggs inside, and they're growing until one gets picked to be the star and release its egg. Now, at the exact same time, look over at what's happening in the uterus. That lining is getting all built up and ready, preparing for a potential implantation. And if it doesn't happen, that's when it sheds. The key is, what happens in the ovary directly tells the uterus what to do.
So with all this going on, what's the big signal? What's the trigger that tells the ovary, okay, it's time, release the egg? Well, take a look at this hormonal chart. You see that massive spike right smack in the middle? You can't miss it. That, my friends, is the luteinizing hormone surge, the LH surge. It is literally the biological starting gun. It gives that final push, and boom, ovulation happens about 9 hours later. This is the main event of the whole cycle.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but it's all happening deep inside the body, right? So it leads to a really practical question. Does the body give us any, external clues? Are there signs we can actually see or measure to track this whole intricate dance?
Absolutely. The body provides 2 key biomarkers we can actually observe. First is your basal body temperature, or BBT. Here's why that works. After ovulation, the hormone progesterone rises, and progesterone is thermogenic. That's just a fancy way of saying it literally generates heat. So your resting body temperature goes up just a tiny bit and stays elevated for the rest of the cycle. The second clue? Cervical mucus. As estrogen peaks right before ovulation, it makes the mucus thin, clear, and stretchy, a lot like raw egg whites. And that's no accident. It creates the perfect superhighway for sperm.
All right, so we've gotten a really good look at the monthly rhythm. We've been zoomed in on the details. Now, let's pull the camera way, way back and look at the big picture. That brings us to part 3, the arc of a lifetime. We're going to look at this whole system from the very beginning to the very end.
So this entire system isn't something that just turns on and stays the same. Not at all. It evolves, a lot, over a person's lifetime. It all kicks off with menarche. That's the technical term for the very first period. This starts the core reproductive years.
After that, there's this transitional phase called perimenopause, and the whole thing concludes with menopause.
Now, I want to pause on something really, really crucial about the beginning of this journey. For the first few years after that first period, it is totally 100% normal and expected for cycles to be irregular, all over the place, really. Why? Well, remember our mission control that HPG axis? It's still learning the ropes. It just takes time for that whole system to mature and for all the hormonal feedback loops to get stable and work smoothly. Okay, during the reproductive years, a lot of people experience premenstrual symptoms, but we need to be really clear about the distinction between PMS and PMDD because they are not the same thing. With PMS, you're looking at milder symptoms. PMDD, on the other hand, that's premenstrual dysphoric disorder, is a recognized depressive disorder where symptoms like mood swings and anxiety are so severe they can significantly impact your daily life. Fundamentally, it's a matter of severity. So what happens toward the end of the reproductive years? We enter perimenopause. And this graph, wow, it tells the hormonal story perfectly. As the ovaries age, you can see the hormone levels, especially estrogen, don't just gently decline. They go on a roller coaster ride. They fluctuate erratically all over the place before they finally drop for good. And that hormonal chaos is precisely why cycles can become so unpredictable, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, as the whole system prepares to wind down. In all of this, everything we've talked about, it all leads here, to our final section. This is the ultimate biological culmination of this entire system. We're talking about the blueprint for life, the absolutely breathtaking journey of conception. When everything in the cycle lines up perfectly, this is the incredible result. This diagram shows the journey during the first week of life. It starts as a single fertilized egg and becomes this complex structure called a blastocyst, getting ready to implant. It's a monumental journey on a truly microscopic scale. Let's break that down because it's a real race against time. It begins on day 0 with ovulation and fertilization. Over the next few days, that single cell just undergoes rapid division. 2 cells become 4, 4 become 8, and on and on. By about day 5 or 6, it has organized itself into a blastocyst. And then, from about day 6 to 10, it begins the most critical step of all, implantation into the uterine wall. But hold on, let's back up for a second. There's a crucial step that has to happen before fertilization can even take place. It's called capacitation. And I love this analogy. Think of it as sperm needing to get their license to fertilize. They don't arrive ready to go. They have to spend several hours traveling through the female reproductive tract. And that journey triggers biochemical changes that essentially activate them. Without this process, they simply cannot penetrate the egg. So when you put it all together, it's just an incredible system. It starts with a hormonal whisper in the brain, orchestrates a complex monthly rhythm, evolves across the arc of a lifetime, and can culminate in this absolute symphony of cellular division that creates new life. The female life cycle is truly, without a doubt, one of biology's most intricate and fundamental masterpieces.